What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got some of them Digimon cards from that blue starter deck that we haven't had a little bit of a look at yet, and that makes me a little bit sad. So, yeah, maybe we fix that. And we have a look at a couple of new Digimon. These are, of course, coming in the Ulforceveedramon starter deck, which is going to be coming along in the not-too-distant future. We've actually seen a few cards from this now. The set list is really starting to come around, and that makes me rather happy indeed. We have got ourselves a new Veedramon and a new Aeroveedramon. And our translations here come from the lovely folks over at Ensan Gaming and the lovely folks at digimoncard.dev. And as you can see from the images where we are using translated proxies, they've got the name of the website on there. It's a great website, and if you're not using it like I am on a regular basis, and you do like Digimon, maybe fix it. So we'll start off with our Veedramon here, and what we've got is a level 4 Digimon, 4 cost to play normally, 2 cost to Digivolve, 5,000 power. There is nothing about this which is particularly noteworthy. That is what we expect from a level 4 Digimon. Nothing particularly high or particularly low. But we have an inheritable skill here that reads, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, when you're attacking, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to their hand. Now, I love this because it gets them off your opponent's board. Now, unlike in some other games, you can Digivolve in Digimon whenever you like. They don't need to have been down for a turn. But like in a lot of other games, you cannot attack the turn you play a Digimon. So essentially, you can put a level 3 back in your opponent's hand, and sure, next turn they can just replay it. Fine. But you know what? They've got to pay the memory to replay it. And even when they do that, they can't attack for the turn. And don't get me wrong, there are sometimes level 3s with great play skills, like for instance Gabumon. So don't use this against Gabumon, or, try really hard not to. So I am totally okay with this. I like it as a skill, but I'm going to come back to what I've been saying about a lot of these kind of cards lately. When am I having 8 cards in hand? Because I've played a bunch of games of the Digimon TCG, and I am going to go ahead and guess that you have probably played a bunch of games of the Digimon TCG. And I want you to ask yourself honestly, how often do you find you've got 8 cards in hand? And the answer is probably not that often at all. And that's a problem, ladies and gentlemen. That's a problem. Because if you don't have 8 cards in hand, it is a vanilla Digimon with underwhelming stats. Well, who would want to play this? If I'm just playing a vanilla level 4 blue Digimon, you better be sure it's going to be something like Gorillamon, because Gorillamon can Digivolve for a 1 cost. And if I'm not getting any skills, I might as well have cheap evolution. So now we need to ask ourselves the questions of, well, how are we actually going to get 8 cards in hand? And the answer is it ain't that easy. And blue has got better draw than most. But, let's go through a few, right? You got something like Uppermon. Well, Uppermon is a great Digitarma. It's got an inheritable skill whereby when you attack, if your opponent has any Digimon with no Digivolution cards, you draw 1. Cool. So there are extra cards. And we all know that when you Digivolve, you draw a card. But you play a card, you draw a card, your hand size is the same. Something like Gabumon, when you play it, you draw a card. But again, you're playing a card, you're drawing a card, your hand size remains the same. We are looking for cards that will increase the amount of cards in your hand. So we can look at something like Veedramon. When you play it, you draw 2 cards. So of course, you're dropping 1 card, you're picking up 2. Your hand size will increase by 1. But what we're going to do, just keep doing this. Keep playing these cards, which are incrementally just increasing your hand size by a tiny, tiny bit, maybe. But the problem there is you basically lock yourself into a game plan where you can only play cards that get you cards. And that's fine, but you have to evolve, or you have to play cards like Gabumon or Veedramon that draw you cards when you play them, or else things are going very, very wrong. We've got the Veedramon. When it becomes unsuspended during your main phase, you can draw a card. That one can work quite nicely. And blue do have ways of making yourself active, so that's fine. Or the promo Garurumon. When you're attacking, if you've got Garurumon in your name, you draw a card. And then, of course, you could potentially combine that with Uppermon to draw 2. And maybe it's possible, is what I'm saying. You've also got the Tai Chi V-Tamer, whereby if you have a Digimon that contains Veedramon in its name, you can rest it and draw a card. And it's possible, is what I'm saying. But you've got to build your deck to take advantage of it. You've got to have evolution lines, which are going from Uppermon through Garurumon, so when you attack, you're drawing 2 cards. Hopefully. And you've got to be playing the Tamer, which will draw you another card. And then, of course, obviously, that Tamer is going to combo very nicely with the Veedramon evolution line, and maybe we actually can get to a stage where you're drawing 4 or 5 cards a turn. And at that stage, you're actually in a position where you're drawing so many cards, you literally can only play cards where you're evolving or playing ones that draw, because actually at that point you've got the luxury of, I've got so many cards in hand, I know I'm going to have the right ones at the right time. But I am extremely skeptical, ladies and gentlemen, as to how often this is actually going to work. And I'd like to be wrong, incidentally, because I think this would be cool. But I think if you're going to get this skill working, you need very particular cards in order to actually have 8 cards in hand. But then the more of them you're playing, the fewer of these you're playing. And we run into some issues here. And we're going to see a very similar thing with Aeroveedramon. It's a level 5, 7 cost to play normally, 3 cost to Digivolve, 7,000 power. All good here. That's basically what we expect from a level 5. And then we've got an inheritable skill whereby if you've got 8 or more cards in your hand, you gain security attack +1 for the turn. And look, we all know that security attack +1 is great. That is not in question. You're taking out an extra security card, you're combining it with all your other skills. It's an inheritable skill, so you can build up your Digimon, and this is only part of it, etc. But the fact of the matter is, you're still having to get that hand size of 8. And the thing is, if we look, this is what this entire line is coming down to. The Veedramon from the starter deck, if you've got 8 or more cards in hand, you gain an extra 1,000 power. Now, the Veedramon does actually have a really cool skill where if you've got 7 or fewer cards in your hand, you draw 1, which is quite nice, admittedly. And then we've got the Ulforceveedramon. When you're attacking once during your turn, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, you unsuspend this Digimon, which of course is kind of funny, because if you've evolved it from the Veedramon, then when you unsuspend, you will actually draw a card. But at that point, you won't really need to, because your skills are already going. But then again, drawing a card, usually a pretty nice thing. My point here is, if you're playing this blue deck, and if you've got a lot of cards in hand, things are going to go very well. But with that one exception that I showed you, essentially what's happening here is we've got a bunch of skills that need you to have 8 cards in hand, but not many ways to get the 8 cards. So then what you need to do is start playing all these other cards I've been mentioning in this video to get your 8 cards in hand, but there's only so much room in your deck. And now you're trying to meld that, hey, I can draw loads of cards deck with the, hey, I'm taking advantage of having loads of cards deck, and maybe it will work. And if it does, you've got extra power, extra security attack, you're unsuspending yourself once during your turn. I get the feeling that this line we're getting in the blue starter deck has the potential to be an incredibly powerful line. But they're basically vanilla cards with bad stats until you get 8 cards in hand. And as I said right near the beginning of the video, I am extremely cynical when I start thinking about whether you're actually going to be able to get 8 cards in hand. And I'd love to be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I would absolutely love to be wrong, because I do think there is potential here. And please, please prove me wrong. But honestly, I'm going to go ahead and give these cards free wassies. And even that seems a little bit generous. I don't think they're bad cards. I just think they're awkward to use. And that's a little bit of an issue. But hey, I'd love to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Me nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk Digimon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all those good things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.